You're listening to Southern Fried Sports with Travis Reier on Tide 100.9 in Tuscaloosa. Southern Fried Sports with Bama Online senior analyst Travis Reier on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
I make it through this year, I think I'm gonna put this bottle down. I guess as time goes on, I'll grow to miss it less than I will now. And I think I'm gonna tell her that I'm gonna go away for a while, till I can get this demon out.
It is 11 a.m. on a treacherous Monday morning in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. It is time once again for Southern Fried Sports right here on your home for University of Alabama Athletics. Tide 100.9 FM. Travis Reier, senior analyst for BamaOnline.com, with you each and every weekday morning from 11 a.m. until noon. The show, as always, brought to you by Peterbrook Chocolatier out there at 1530 McFarland Boulevard North in the Indian Hills section of Tuscaloosa. Peterbrook, the national champs of chocolate for Valentine's week. That's right. That's right. Among the Peterbrook Chocolatier stores, 24 in all, it was ours right here in West Central Alabama that led the way in sales. A big thank you to everyone in the Tuscaloosa area who helped Peterbrook Tuscaloosa to that distinction. All the credit in the world to you folks. Absolutely. The Peterbrook dynasty rolls on. 14 years now. Kind of goes hand in hand with that Alabama football dynasty. You know what I'm saying? You recognizing any of the connection there? Maybe? I don't know. Peterbrook Chocolatier, 1530 McFarland Boulevard North. Joined on the program by executive producer Jacob Harrison, who together we combine to form the 60-minute band of Sports Talk Radio. And Jacob, man, what is going on outside right now? It is here. It is here, I'm afraid, or it's about to really be here. One or the other or both.
Yeah, one or the other or both. I think it's both. We were just looking outside about 20 minutes ago, and it looked like the day after tomorrow, and now it's kind of clearing up a little bit. Yeah, not a fan of the sideways rain, Travis.
No, never. And we're certainly going to do our best here at Tide 100.9 FM, and, of course, the other stations on the Town Square media family going to do the same as well to try to get you through this rough weather, man. It's tough out there. Be careful. Be safe out on those streets. Temperatures dropping, wind picking up, sideways rain. Absolutely. We got a lot to get into on this Monday edition of Southern Fried Sports, as is typically the case on Mondays. We got some winners and losers from the sports weekend, in addition to Peterbrook Chocolatier here in the Tuscaloosa area. Pretty good weekend for Alabama athletics, I would say. I guess gymnastics took its first loss over in Athens on Friday night, but you had an altered season opening softball schedule for our guy Patrick Murphy and the Alabama softball team. They ended up down in Montgomery because of weather conditions in Austin, Texas, that were not conducive to really anything outdoors, as a matter of fact, there in the state of Texas. So Murph and his crew adjust on the fly, goes down to Montgomery, beats Alabama State, beats Notre Dame down there, comes home, and then takes a double dip from the Cardinals of the University of Louisville. Alabama goes 4-0 for the weekend. 4 shutouts. I like starting out with 4 shutouts, don't you? Alyssa Brown, the veteran center fielder, 6 for 9 over the weekend, 9 for 9 on stolen bases, 5 runs. Bailey Hemphill, a good start at the plate, 5 for 12, an RBI. 5 RBI. And then what we talked about up the middle of this Alabama softball team, you got a freshman at shortstop, Bailey Dowling. Looks like she's going to be a great one. two-time Illinois Player of the Year on the high school level. She's also hitting in the middle of the lineup, had her first career home run yesterday over there at the Rhodes House. So a good start for Murph and the Alabama softball team. And, of course, Alabama men's basketball on Saturday afternoon there at Coleman Coliseum, just 115 points. No overtime either, all right? Didn't cheat. You might see some teams on the college level get to $115 if they play that extra 5. No overtime involved. In Alabama men's basketball, with a school record for SEC play anyway, 115 points in that whitewashing of the Georgia Bulldogs. You had the Darius Miles dunk. That's all anybody wants to talk about. You know, the Darius Miles dunk. It was a hellacious dunk, don't get me wrong. It got me sort of into the mode of best in-game dunkers in Alabama men's basketball history. Robert Horry, Gerald Wallace, Antonio McDyess, some maybe under-the-radar guys like Tony Mitchell. Tony Mitchell could throw it down. Keeping Tony on the court was a bit of a challenge, but when he was out there, you had to have a head on a swivel if you were an opponent, because Tony would throw it down on your head. Scenario Hillman. Remember Scenario? Another one of those guys. Wasn't going to beat you shooting many threes, Scenario, but Scenario could sky in his own right. He also had a walk-on like Jason Reese years ago. You remember that Auburn game years ago? Jason Reese had a memorable dunk off the bench for Alabama. So maybe we'll get into some in-game dunkers in Alabama men's basketball history, but we'll also take your phone calls at 205-342-9904. That is the Peter Brook studio line. If you'd like to check in with us, we'd love to hear from you. We're going to talk with Chris Hummer, the professorial one, Chris Hummer, national college football writer for 247sports.com, coming up around 11:20 or so. We're going to get into a multitude of topics with Chris Hummer because he can do that. He's very versatile, very capable, Chris Hummer. We're going to talk with Chris Hummer. Gus Malzahn. Did Gus get his mouse ears? Sounds like he's getting them this afternoon down there in Orlando. Gus Malzahn to UCF. Did UCF upgrade? When all this is said and done, when the dust settles, did UCF actually upgrade over Josh Heupel? I mean, when you look at Gus's resume, SEC championship, national championship game appearance, 3 wins over Nick Saban in Alabama during his time at Auburn. I don't know. I think UCF came out of this thing pretty good. You know, Gus obviously knows the lay of the land in this region when it comes to recruiting. He's going to be in a league where UCF, in terms of commitment and resources, is at the very top of that list in the AAC. I think Gus came out pretty good. I think UCF came out pretty good. I think when you consider Gus got $21.4 million to go away from Auburn, and he got half of that. Remember this, too. He got half of that within 30 days of his dismissal. That'll buy a lot of fast passes down there at Disney, won't it? Yeah. They got Waffle Houses in Orlando. Gus is going to be, he's going to be just fine. Going to be able to get that cheese and eggs plate. That's the personal favorite at Waffle House. Jacob, do you have a Waffle House personal favorite to go to at the Waffle House?
Oh, yes, sir, I do.
What is it? Let's hear it.
All-Star. 3 eggs with cheese, sausage well done, grits in a bowl. You know, cut up the sausage, put it in the grits. Grits with cheese as well. 2 waffles.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Jacob, you're an old lineman, right? I mean, so that's kind of...
Well, technically, no. I just really like to eat. And I worked at Waffle House for a period of time, so I kind of had a feeling of, I got to know what was good and what was not. And some of the tricks. I
don't want to go behind the curtain on Waffle House. That might ruin it for me. No behind the curtain at the Waffle House. Now, if you've got some sort of off-the-menu, hacks that you can give us, we're open for those. The off-the-menu hacks we're definitely down with. I'm cheese and eggs guy. I don't think my cardiologist likes that as much these days, but I love the cheese eggs. I get the bacon well done. Got to tell them well done, don't you, Jacob? Because it'll just be kind of a flash and dash with that bacon. Be a little soggy, a little, not great. You got to tell them well done or crisp with that bacon. I got to get the hash browns. You don't get the hash browns, or did you say hash browns?
No, I like the grits in the bowl,
like the grits bowl.
With the sausage, yeah.
See, I go hash browns over grits, and then I love the raisin toast. The only thing about the raisin toast, and you can maybe give us, is that apple butter? Is it expensive for them? Because they'll only give you that one container of that apple butter for that raisin toast. It must be costly. It must be trying to hold back on that stuff.
I think they give like a third of the they keep a third of that compared to what they do with grape and strawberry. So that has a little bit to do with it.
They have to ration it. Yeah, you have to be resourceful with the apple butter when it comes to the raisin toast.
Hey, if you ask for three things of them, though, I was the first one in line. You're going to get 3 things of apple butter.
You can do that. Yeah, all right. Well, this is great. I didn't know we had an in-house expert, an alum, so to speak, of Waffle House. I could spend shows doing Waffle House shows, if it came down to it. 205-342-9904 is the Peterbrook Chocolatier studio line. So, yeah, we've got Alabama men's basketball now, still very much in control of things in the SEC regular season race. And we'll see, I guess, how things play out with Texas A&M moving towards the middle of the week. That's the next destination for this Alabama team, a trip to College Station. As we talked about on Friday, A&M forced to postpone its game over the weekend against the Florida Gators due to COVID issues. So we'll see. We'll see what the midweek looks like for Nate Oates and his team. Home game against Vanderbilt. And really, again, with the way things are shaking out, take care of business at home with Vanderbilt and Auburn. And you're looking at your first SEC regular season title since 2002, to be exact. So continues to look very good for this Alabama team. You saw on Saturday before the game, CBS hosted that early reveal of the current seeding for the NCAA men's tournament. And you saw Alabama as the number 7 overall seed on that program. The number 2 seed in Region 1, as it's being called right now. All these games are going to be played in the Indianapolis area, or in the state of Indiana, of course, with the NCAA tournament this time around. So it'd be interesting to see if they just stick with Region 1, Region 2, Region 3, Region 4. But Alabama was a 2 seed in that Region 1 with Gonzaga, the number 1 overall seed, and the number 1 seed in that Region 1, Oklahoma, the 3 seed in that region, and Iowa, number 4 there in that region with Gonzaga, Alabama, and OU. The Alabama women yesterday got a much-needed win, by the way, on the road at Auburn. A 4-game losing streak comes to an end for Christy Curry's team. They get back to 500 in the league. I think 8-8 in the regular season is enough this year to get the Alabama women into the NCAA women's tournament for the first time since 1999. Need to take care of business on the road this week at Florida. And then you got another stretch coming up that's not going to be easy. I believe it's Mississippi State, Arkansas, and Texas A&M, with 2 of those 3 on the road for your final 3. So really need to get a game over 500 at Florida this week. Get to 7-6, and then win one of the 3 from State, Arkansas, and A&M. Specifically, that home game with Mississippi State. Alabama's already knocked off the Bulldogs on the road this season. If you could take care of business at home against State, get a road win over Florida, I think at 8-8 going into the SEC tournament, feel really good about their chances as well. 205-342-9904. Other items that we will get into on this Monday edition of the program. Some of this we'll cover with Chris Hummer as well coming up in just a little bit. Jay Valai your new, yet to be officially announced, cornerbacks coach at the University of Alabama. How about this last stretch of 4 or 5 years for Jay Valai? You want to have the coaching business put into sort of put a bow on top of it for you, kind of packaged in a way in which you can understand how it works. And a lot of this is in line with what we've talked about here about the NFL and the Power 5 level, especially kind of falling into one streamline, one pipeline of coaches. Jay Valai, former Wisconsin player, he has worked since 2016. He has worked at Georgia. He has worked with the Kansas City Chiefs. He has worked at Rutgers. He has worked at Texas. He has worked at Houston. And he has worked with the Philadelphia Eagles. All that since 2016. And as a matter of fact, in the last month alone, he has drawn paychecks from Texas. I guess he drew one from Houston. I don't know if he was there long enough because I think it was 10 or 11 days before Valai went from Houston to the Philadelphia Eagles. And now here he is a few weeks after that with the Alabama Crimson Tide. That's coaching in 2021. We're going to head to our first break. When we come back, we are going to check in with Chris Hummer, national college football writer there at 247sports.com. We'll ask Chris about his thoughts on Gus Malzahn, apparently, to Central Florida. He knows a little bit about Jay Valai and the track he's been on. Chris, of course, right out there in Austin, Texas, which, by the way, Chris tells me power's out in Austin, Texas. No power for Chris Hummer right now, but he will join us. Sleet, snow, uphill, both ways. Chris Hummer, you can count on him. So we'll check in with Chris of 247sports.com coming up next on a Monday edition of Southern Fried Sports right after this.
From the University of Alabama, this is Crimson Tide Today. It's a daily update on Bama sports and it's brought to you by C Spire. Add C Spire Fiber to your roster at cspire.com/ALFiber. Hello again, everybody. I'm Roger Hoover. Senior Jasmine Walker set a new school record with 41 points to lead Alabama past Auburn 92-78 on Sunday afternoon down in the Plains. Walker scored 21 of her 41 points in the fourth quarter to lead the Tide to their fourth straight win against their in-state rivals. The win puts Alabama back at 500 in SEC play at 6-6, with the trip to Florida next up on Thursday. Congratulations as well to the Alabama softball team, winning all 4 of their games this weekend to begin the 2021 season. Patrick Murphy also passed the 1,100 win mark with Sunday's victories at Rhodes Stadium. Alabama returns to action this weekend, hosting the Easton Bama Bash at Rhodes Stadium. I'll have more in a moment.
Bad internet is bad for business. We've all been there. Lagging video chats, slow downloads.
Oh, come on.
It's just not a good look. Instead, call C Spire Business. Our local experts deliver gigabit speeds backed by thousands of miles of fiber for the fastest, most reliable internet around. Period. No excuses, no apologies. Just fiber fast internet that works. C Spire Business. See how our fiber solutions can help power your success at cspirebusiness.com.
Join us tonight for Hey Coach, presented by Alpha Insurance on the network at 6 p.m. Central. We'll be hosting the show live from Baumhauer's Victory Grill in Tuscaloosa, and we'll be joined on the show by gymnastics coach Dana Duckworth, as well as basketball head coach Nate Oates. The show begins at 6 p.m., and we'll be streaming live on our Twitter and Facebook pages. And that's your Bama update. Crimson Tide Today, brought to you by C Spire. Crimson Tide Today is a production of the Crimson Tide Sport.
Tuscaloosa County remains under a winter storm warning today. Initially, the big icing problems north and west of Tuscaloosa, but as cold air moves in this afternoon, rain will likely change to freezing rain. Temperatures go below freezing. We'll probably begin to see some bridge icing by mid to late afternoon. There could be some icy patches on blacktop roads tonight. We'll be in the teens early tomorrow morning. So if you're driving later this afternoon and tonight, watch out for icing on bridges and some roads as well. Again, we'll be in the teens tomorrow morning, but the good news, we go back in the 40s by Wednesday, low 50s by by Thursday. We'll watch the weather carefully. We'll keep you advised. I'm James Spann in the ABC 3340 Weather Center.
Tide 100.9. For more coverage of Alabama football, visit us at Tide100.9.com or download the free Tide 100.9 app.
The Crimson Tide will not be denied.
Also President's Day today, so if you're looking for a bank or somewhere to do a business transaction, nope. And in honor of President's Day, a little bush for you there. Get it? Oh, we're so cute and clever, Jacob, you know? Really undervalued aspect of the program, I think, the cuteness and the cleverness. Anyway, the Alabama men's basketball team, as we prepare to shift to some college football talk with Chris Hummer of 247sports.com, the Alabama men's basketball team, the AP poll, the latest AP poll has come out, and your Alabama Crimson Tide now number 8 in the nation in the AP. Back into that top 10. There you go. Alabama men's basketball looking for its 6th football, men's basketball, SEC championship combination in athletic department history. You had 3 of those in a 3-year stretch under Paul William Bryant and C.M. Newton on the basketball side. Had one in 33-34 with Frank Thomas and Hank Crisp. And then 89-90, Bill Curry whipped Sanderson. Thanks to Kirk McNair, by the way, for that little nugget at BamaOnline.com. Read that in one of Kirk's pieces on BOL over the weekend. Let's head to the Peterbrook Chocolatier studio line right now and check in with Chris Hummer. Get into some college football talk with Chris Hummer. First of all, Chris, we were communicating earlier, power outage for you there in Austin. You hanging in there? I mean, what do you got a bonfire or something going? How are you managing, Chris, first and foremost?
We're panicking in Austin about everything shut down. Power's been out on my end since 2 a.m., so just trying to enjoy the snow from the window and stay warm. We're not used to that over here in Texas, so it's a very, very odd winter for us for sure.
Yeah. Well, hang in there, my man. Generator sales typically go up after stuff like this, so just do your best out there. And we're looking at it squarely in the teeth right now as it makes its way into the southeast. And we're going to talk some more about Austin, Texas coming up here in just a little bit, but the bigger breaking type news today, Gus Malzahn, it looks like, headed to Orlando and UCF. I guess there was a hire there at the athletic director level, similar to what we saw at Tennessee, I guess, talking about UCF and that transition up to Knoxville. You surprised by this? And the question we asked earlier, do you think maybe UCF upgraded with Gus Malzahn if, in fact, it plays out that way?
Yeah, I think it's a really strong hire. Obviously, they took Arkansas State's athletic director, who has a extended background with Gus Malzahn being an alumnus of that university, former coach there. So when that kind of came to fruition a couple of days ago, Gus Malzahn's name started to pop up, and I think it made all the sense in the world. Gus was kind of, at least in the background of a couple jobs this offseason, including at Texas Tech, had they chosen to let go of Matt Wells. So I'm not surprised to see Gus getting into it so quickly. As for if it's an upgrade or not, I think largely it probably is. I think if you look at Gus on paper, he's been to a national championship game. He's beaten Nick Saban 3 times. He's been one of the more successful coaches of the last decade. That is a guy who can go into UCF and win right away. Although I do have a bit of a hesitation about Gus's recent track record, particularly offensively. I think he is a step down from Josh Heupel in that regard. And if I'm Dillon Gabriel, I'm a little apprehensive about it. But I think Gus is a big enough brand name, and he's at a school with enough resources to win right away and to win a lot.
Let's talk about Sark out there in your neck of the woods now in Austin, Texas. And we talked about this when he got the job and how Quinn Ewers, the five-star quarterback there in the state of Texas for that 2022 cycle, was at one time committed to Tom Herman and the Longhorns, and then flipped his commitment to the Ohio State Buckeyes. I kind of wondered what approach Sark would take there, if in fact Ewers would have any interest in maybe circling back on his end of things. But it looks like Sark is gone back to his comfort zone out there in the state of Texas. And Malik Murphy, a 24/7 Sports composite 5-star, and a big pickup for Sark when you look ahead a year, I guess.
Yeah, huge. Whenever a guy like Quinn Ewers decommits from your class, you don't really expect to pick up a quarterback even somewhat close to what Quinn Ewers is going to produce. I don't think Texas did. As good as Malik Murphy is, he's a 5-star in the 2022 class. Like, there's only one Quinn Ewers in this class. But when you're Sark and you're early kind of in your tenure, you create momentum however you can. And by picking up a 5-star quarterback to kind of be the bell cow of that class, I don't think he could have done much better. A lot of those 2022 dominoes have already fallen, and Malik Murphy was the best available player on the board position. And for Sark to strike that quickly this early in his tenure is only going to kind of really help that class be pushed along the rest of the offseason. I think it was a huge, huge thing for Sark to get that quarterback committed next cycle and to kind of get a jump start on bringing that class together.
Yeah, same high school, by the way, for Malik Murphy as Tom Brady. Not bad when you look at it from that perspective.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Junipero Serra High School out there in the state of California.
So all he has to do is win 7 Super Bowls and date a supermodel to kind of be the best quarterback from his high school.
Yeah, I think Texas fans would just take Vince Young. All he's got to be is Vince Young. That's all he's got to be, right? As great as Vince was, no pressure back in the day.
Absolutely no pressure there with Vince Young. None at all. Like, that guy means nothing in Texas. Like, it's a very easy legacy to live up to.
Did Texas, by the way, and Alabama essentially swap assistant coaches now? Not position for position, because Jeff Banks, obviously tight end, special teams, offensive side of the ball, but just an amazing path too for Jay Valai here in the last month or so, really since 2016 when you look at his resume. But I guess it's just indicative too, Chris, we talked about this earlier. This is Power 5 coaching / NFL coaching sort of intertwined now in 2021 when you look at Jay Valai.
Yeah, it's a crazy path for Jay, unquestionably. You mentioned it earlier. He was just like a private defensive back trainer less than 5 years ago, and now he's the cornerbacks coach at Alabama. And as you said, he's had a wild offseason. He wasn't retained at Texas, so he went to Houston. I'm sure you've told your listeners this past, but it's kind of crazy. He left that job at Houston to take a job with the Eagles, and now he was offered a job with the Alabama Crimson Tide, and he's headed there. So quite a month for him, and I don't know if it's an equal trade. Jeff Banks is clearly one of the elite recruiters in the country, and I think that special teams aspect of it is really, really big for Texas. They've struggled with that position since Mack Brown left. But Jay is a really great recruiter and up-and-coming coach, and he is somebody with kind of Alabama's backing is going to be an elite recruiter for the Tide, no question about that.
Yeah, and of course, as we know, and the positional hires, especially in the wake of Charles Huff moving on, Carl Scott moving on, Jeff Banks moving on, especially critical when you talk about the recruiting aspect of backfilling for guys that were among the top 10 in the 2021 cycle in all of college football. Speaking of recruiting, Chris, I got to ask you, I know you had a chance to catch up with Jake Spavital, the head coach there at Texas State. Fascinating, though, to see that Texas State, in terms of where its most recent recruiting effort sits, I guess right now, they still have some spots open, as you noted in the update, but to this point, the 2021 class at Texas State is made up entirely of transfers. Is that correct?
Yeah, not a single high school player in Texas State's 2021 class, which is insane, especially when you consider the state Texas State is located in. There's a lot of high school football talent in Texas, and for Texas State to go with an all-transfer strategy is extremely, extremely bold. Jake Spavital kind of walked around the question a little bit when I asked him. He was saying they offered a lot of high school kids, and they just said no. I think that's somewhat true, but if you kind of look at Texas State's offers this cycle, probably like 70% of them went to players who went to the Power 5 eventually, so Texas State didn't really have a shot to sign those guys. I think they really purposely decided their roster needed an upgrade of talent, so he went right to the portal and he added 10 players from the FBS and FCS level plus a JUCO transfer. And they have 10 counters left this cycle, so they're not done. This transfer class could be 15 or 16 deep by the time the season starts next year. And I think it's a product of a couple things, but mostly just a kind of change in strategy and what the transfer portal allows. If you're Texas State, a program who hasn't really had much success since coming over from the FCS level earlier this century, like you have to try something new, and Jake Spavital is doing that, and it's either going to work or flame out spectacularly. We saw something similar with Charlie Weiss at Kansas when he brought in so many JUCO players. That didn't work, but Texas State is a different level of football, and there are much better players available in the transfer portal now. So I think that program is one of the more fascinating to watch over the next couple of years.
Speaking of the transfer portal, Alabama apparently has its eye on a particular individual. I know you've reported on this, and Hank South, our recruiting analyst there at BOL, late last week had an absolutely revealing update with the father of Henry To'oTo'o.
Henry To'oTo'o's dad, man. That was crazy. Hank just delivering the goods.
Yeah, I'm surprised Hank didn't pass out during the course of all that, try to maintain consciousness. That's a recruiting analyst dream update in the era, especially of social media. But the situation with the one-time rule being tabled, is there a feeling one way or the other about how this might go in April, I guess, or it was anticipated in January, I guess, that it would push through, and here we are waiting on April. Anything you can shed some light on there? Is it kind of just up in the air still?
I think it's very, very, very likely to be passed. Almost everybody in college football is operating under the assumption that it will be passed. You've seen coaches adopt a strategy like Texas State largely because they assume that rule will be passed. I would be shocked if it wasn't. I think it getting pushed back had a lot more to do with the NCAA having to deal with so many other things related to COVID than the rule actually being impacted. I think if you're looking for a rule that is a little bit more contentious right now and a little more up for debate, it's the NIL discussion. But in terms of the transfer rule itself, I do expect that to go through in April.
Wanted to ask you from your perspective, because we're starting to get more and more into NFL draft talk as you get into the process, but here still kind of on the outset of it, or still a lot to be determined. Who do you see as Alabama's best pro in this class? Not necessarily it may end up being that it's, in your opinion, the first player that comes off the board from the Alabama contingent. But when you think ahead to a professional career, which of these Alabama guys in this upcoming draft do you sort of envision as the top pro of the group?
I'm interested to hear your answer, but I thought about this for a while, and I think Patrick Surtain is the one I feel safest with. I think Patrick Surtain is a 15-year NFL pro. I think he is as technically sound as any cornerback to come out of the draft in a very long time. He obviously has the NFL pedigree. He has the requisite side, all of the requisite kind of athletic traits that you need. He was excellent in college against the best receivers. And I do not doubt that Patrick Surtain will be a multi-time Pro Bowler. I want to say a guy like Jalen Waddle or Devontae Smith, but I have questions long-term about Devontae kind of holding up with his thin frame in the NFL, as great as he was and as great as he is. Jalen Waddle, kind of some of the same questions with how small he is. I think you kind of risk injury down the line at his size, as explosive as he is, and as good as the NFL is getting people in space kind of with his athletic abilities. But Patrick Surtain is the guy long-term that I just think is going to be an absolute star and an absolute pro for a really long time. So he's the safe answer, and I feel pretty good about kind of picking him among that group.
Yeah, I think if I was going to pick a guy in this group in terms of dollars made in the NFL, it'd be hard to go against Patrick Surtain, especially when you consider the value of his position. I think it's actually decreased in recent years because it's become so much about offense. I think there's more value with wide receivers even now. But if you're truly an elite corner like a Jalen Ramsey or one of those guys, you're going to make a lot of money. I'll go, and speaking of a position that's not valued, and this may be why you didn't pick Najee Harris, but just in terms of what he can do at his respective position as a pro, it's hard for me to look away from Najee because he is so good as a receiver. He's become a better pass protector. He is truly an every down back. He's not going to be a big home run hitter. But how many guys in the NFL, how many games a week do you watch in the NFL and guys are ripping off 70-yard runs? I mean, it doesn't happen that much anyway in the NFL. I just like his versatility and his entire skill set. I'll tell you the career I'd like to have, though, and the guy who will probably be around the longest, give me Mac Jones. Because if Mac Jones isn't a starter, Chris, I mean, he is the consummate backup for probably 23 years if that's what he wants to do. I think Mac Jones can be in the NFL as long as he wants, Chris.
Yeah, I think Mac Jones, I think he's a guy that could start as accurate as he is. His mobility in the pocket really worries me, especially if a team has a good interior rush, and doesn't have as good of a line as Alabama did. But I totally agree. With his accuracy, kind of the way he looks at the game, how smart he is going to be that quarterback that you're like in 2042 and you're like, he's still around? But yeah, I totally agree. He's going to have a really long NFL career. He's going to make a lot of dollars. Might not be starter dollars, but he'll make Chase Daniel like $6 million a year for a backup role dollars. And that's good living right there.
Matt Moore, Chase Daniel, look at Brian Hoyer. Blaine Gabbert just won a Super Bowl ring. Blaine Gabbert just won a world championship ring. Give me a break. Matt Barkley still rattling
Chad
around.
Too. I remember Chad Henne from 2 decades
Chad
ago.
Money.
It was at Michigan.
Chad Money.
He was throwing important playoff passes. Matt Jones could easily do that. I completely agree with that. He's going to have I won't say it's a tough position to be a quarterback in the NFL, especially when you're a first round pick. There's going to be a lot of kind of eyes on you, but once he kind of gets past that point in his career, even if he's not a superstar, I think Mac Jones is going to have a really long career in the NFL without much question.
Give me Mac's career, whether he's the next Joe Montana / Tom Brady or just even Josh McCown. Give it to me. Give me all those years. Give me all that service time.
There are worse things to be than Josh McCown. No question about that.
I mean, there is such a need for backups. Some of these guys are coaching high school teams during the week and then flying into Philadelphia on Saturdays to back up or be the number 3 on Sunday. It's beautiful. It's going to be great for Mac Jones. Hey, we appreciate it as always, Chris. Great stuff with us here on the show. Always enjoy checking in. Stay warm out there, my man. Best of luck with the power and all that. And we'll do some wellness checks on you now. Now we're committed to wellness checks for Chris Hummer in the coming days. All right, my man.
The
take
whole
care.
State of Texas needs it right now. We're just frozen. But y'all stay safe out there in Alabama as well. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Just keep thinking. Pitchers and catchers report soon. Just keep thinking that. That'll keep you warm. There he goes, Chris Hummer, national college football writer for 247sports.com. Going to step aside for a break. When we come back, more of a Monday edition of Southern Fried Sports right here on Tide 100.9 FM right after this.
You're listening to Southern Fried Sports with BamaOnline.com senior analyst Travis Reier on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Hey Joe, where you going with that gun in your hand? Hey Joe, I said, where you going with that gun in your hand? I'm going out and shoot my old lady. You know, I call her around with another man. I'm going on to shoot my old lady. You know I caught her mess around with another man. And that ain't too good. Hey, Joe, I said, I heard these shots your lady down and shut her down.
Back with more on the Monday edition of Southern Fried Sports right here on Tide 100.9 FM. Travis Schreier, senior analyst for BamaOnline.com, with you each and every weekday morning from 11 a.m. until noon. As always, appreciate Chris Hummer, chilly Chris Hummer out there in Austin, Texas today, joining us here on the program. What do you think, Jacob Harrison? What do you think about that question? Alabama's best pro in this latest NFL haul. If you had to pick one from this group, who do you envision as the best overall pro?
So that I'm understanding it, out of the 68 that are in the NFL right now?
No, of this draft crop.
Oh, the draft crop.
Yeah.
I think that Landon Dickerson will have the best career.
He loves him. Jacob loves him some Landon Dickerson.
I do.
I mean, he just loves LD. Even with the 2 knee issues. I mean, you're not worried about the medical?
I mean, yeah, everybody should be worried about the medical, but I just think, it's a bit easier for him to fly under the radar. The expectations won't be quite as high for him. But if he can turn in a 10-year career, then, out of
versatility, intangibles.
Right. If you need him at guard, that's not going to be an issue. Whereas even though Najee has the measurables or Smitty has, the Heisman backing him up, there's this level of expectations that is almost unattainable until they start doing freakish things like what Derrick Henry does on a weekly basis. And that's a little difficult to project.
Saw something over the weekend, sort of made the comparison of Derrick Henry and Najee Harris coming out of Alabama, and the assertion was Najee goes to the NFL as a more complete player. Well, I don't think you can argue that. I mean, you look at what Najee did as a receiver over these last 2 years especially, and you're not going to argue with that. But the thing was, the offenses at Alabama couldn't have been more different in 2015 and what they were in 19, or really 20, 19 and 20, with Najee as the primary guy. I mean, entirely different. And Derrick Henry got 395 carries in 2015. That wasn't the case with Najee Harris in that offense the last 2 years. Now, he was able, may have hurt Derrick too. Najee was able to showcase the pass-catching abilities. I think that is the biggest reason why you see Najee as high in some mock drafts. You did a mock here in the last couple of days, right? And you have Najee in the high teens, don't you? Going to the Dolphins, Jacob?
Yeah, had him go 18 to the Dolphins.
And you're probably basing a good bit of that on his completeness as a back, for lack of a better word, I guess.
Yeah, well, he could step in and be the bell cow, and then if anybody that had trepidations about his speed, they still have Matt Breida on the roster, who's one of the fastest running backs in the NFL. So, I mean, you can kind of balance that out.
Yeah, but in terms of value at his position, as we all know, that's high for a back these days,
Extremely.
Saquon Barkley, you've had the rare exception, I guess, in the last 4 or 5 years. But all the college production in the world doesn't mean a lot to the evaluators at the next level. And that's where you have a problem with Najee in terms of projecting him as the best pro in this group, because, man, with the value of that position being what it is, as soon as you lose just a little bit, you can lose a little bit at quarterback. You can lose a little bit at offensive tackle. But as soon as you lose just a little bit as a running back in the National Football League, they're on to the next dude. I mean, just look at Leonard Fournette for more on that. And it really wasn't about ability with Leonard Fournette in Jacksonville. It was just the guy just didn't know how to be a pro. And so the Jags transition away from Leonard Fournette with an undrafted free agent in James Robinson, who goes for over 1,000 yards in 2020 for a one-win team over 1,000 yards. That's how quickly it can come and go for the running backs in the NFL. Not for long indeed. Going to head to our final break. When we come back, we'll put a wrap on a Monday edition of Southern Fried Sports right here on Tide 100.9 FM right after this.
Gary is
Tuscaloosa County remains under a winter storm warning today. Initially, the big icing problems north and west of Tuscaloosa, but as cold air moves in this afternoon, rain will likely change to freezing rain. Temperatures go below freezing. We'll probably begin to see some bridge icing by mid to late afternoon. There could be some icy patches on blacktop roads tonight. We'll be in the teens early tomorrow morning. So if you're driving later this afternoon and tonight, watch out for icing on bridges and some roads as well. Again, we'll be in the teens tomorrow morning, but the good news, we go back in the 40s by Wednesday, low 50s by Thursday. We'll watch the weather carefully. We'll keep you advised. I'm James Spann in the ABC 3340 Weather Center.
The flagship station for Alabama Crimson Tide football.
Alabama touchdown.
Only on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Country, I'm gonna eat a lot of peaches. I'm moving to the country, I'm gonna eat me a lot of peaches. I'm moving to the country, I'm gonna eat a lot of peaches. I'm moving to the country, I'm gonna eat a lot of peaches. Peaches come from a can, they were put there by a man in a factory downtown.
Back with more of a Monday edition of Southern Fried Sports right here on Tide 100.9 FM. Travis Reier, senior analyst for BamaOnline.com, with you each and every weekday morning from 11 a.m. until noon. A little bit of a recruiting update in connection with this inclement weather we are encountering really across the country at this point. You know, the oldest Reier of the brood, Evan Reier, he is a resident of Butte, Montana these days. So yesterday morning I get up, I check the old weather app to see what it's like out there in Ev's neck of the woods. -8 yesterday morning for Ev. That's what he woke up to. Good morning, Glory. How about -8? Oh, but don't worry. It's going to get up to 12. Oof. But in relation to this weather, Ty Simpson, one of the top quarterback prospects for the class of 2022, we talked about Malik Murphy, the Californian, and his commitment to Steve Sarkisian at the quarterback position for that same cycle of 2022. Well, Ty Simpson, a Tennessean up there, was going to announce his intentions this Friday at 2 o'clock Central. Now Ty Simpson updates us via social media that because of inclement weather and the closing of his school, he's delaying his commitment announcement until Friday, February the 26th at 2 p.m. Central. So Ty Simpson, Alabama, very much in play there. A lot of Clemson smoke there with Ty Simpson as well. His father, the head football coach at Tennessee, Martin. And so that one's been backed up a week. If you were biding your time as an Alabama fan for that Ty Simpson commitment. And those quarterback dominoes, man, they start to fall. It seems like every year. Every cycle, the quarterback dominoes start to fall in January, late January into mid-February, late February. And we've seen it in the past. Jake Fromm, thinking back to the 2017 recruiting class. It was, I think, about this time in early 2017 that Jake Fromm was an Alabama quarterback commitment. That changed. He flipped to the University of Georgia, and then all you did was end up with Tua Tagovailoa and Mac Jones. Think it worked out for Alabama in that 2017 class? We'll see what Ty Simpson's got in mind coming up here. But it'll be delayed by a week, according to his Twitter account just a few moments ago. As we told you earlier, Alabama men's basketball moves up to number 8 in the latest Associated Press poll. Going to be an interesting week for the Crimson Tide in terms of Texas A&M and its status for the midweek affair with the Aggies. A&M, again, postponed its game over the weekend with Florida due to COVID issues, so we'll see how this week gets going for Nate Oates' team. You know, there was some really tragic news to report from over the weekend, too. Hated to see this as we get out of here on a Monday. But former Alabama defensive lineman Lorenzo Washington passed away yesterday at the age of 34. Of course, if you're an Alabama fan, you remember Zoe from the late Shula years into the early stages of the Nick Saban era, was a part of that national championship team in 2009, a very big piece to that defensive line when Alabama football under Nick Saban really started to turn the corner. Lorenzo Washington as a recruit, especially for the Shula era, that was a big, big deal when he made the decision to commit to Alabama. Now, sort of unexpectedly, he came up short of qualifying standards. I believe he ended up at Hargrave for a year before eventually making his way to Tuscaloosa. But Lorenzo Washington as a recruit coming out of Grayson High School, Tim Watts, site publisher for BOL and myself many years ago, made the trip over to Grayson. And this is back when Mickey Kahn, the former Alabama defensive back, walk-on of note from the Stallings era, was the head coach at Grayson. So we went over and we met with Zoe, and just as engaging, personable, fun to be around as anyone you would ever encounter. So you just hate to see at 34 years of age, Lorenzo Washington passes away. That's going to do it for a Monday edition of Southern Fried Sports. Thanks again to Chris Hummer, national college football writer for 247sports.com, for joining us. Jacob Harrison doing an outstanding job once again producing the program. The lunch whistle on this Monday, no better place to warm up than Southern Ale House. You just walk into Southern Ale House and you automatically feel about 25 to 30 degrees warmer, and that's just the start, because between the likelihood of there being either brisket chili, maybe Brunswick stew, it's a perfect day to get by. Southern Ale House, 1530 McFarland Boulevard North. Until 11 a.m. on Tuesday. Have a great rest of your Monday, everybody.
Peaches for me.